Hi everyone. How are you? Para los que quieran escuchar la conferencia en castellano, hay un icono en la barra de webinar abajo que dice Interpretation y ahí pueden darle clic y escucharlo en español. If you want to listen to the conference in English, you can just stay here with me. My name is Lucia Morelli, and I am a graduate student at MIT's Department of Urban Planning. Welcome to the third session of Resilience Untangled, Challenges and Opportunities in Latin America and the Caribbean. For those of you who have been with us during the whole conference, welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, here's a short recap. We started the day with a discussion panel featuring esteemed professors from each one of the events for organizing schools. Nora Libertun de Duren moderated an open and critical discussion of the meaning of resilience moving forward and the different stakeholders and principal diffusers of the concept. In the second session, we saw presentations from 8 students from the 4 organizing schools. They showcased their work, which ranges from actual practice to the academic and theoretical realms. Now, we are going to hear from 2 extraordinary organizations who are working on bottom-up approaches to resilient practices. First, Amancaes will present their work in Lima, Peru, and then we will hear from Fundación Espacio and the work they have been doing in Caracas, Venezuela. We will then open the session to questions from the audience, so please feel free to post them on the Q&A section that's under the webinar. We're a bit over time because the other 2 panels ran a bit longer, but it was totally worth it if you were here. So this session will end at 3:15 Eastern time. So Claudia and Javiera, I don't know if you want to share your first slide while I present you.
Yes, of course. Give me 1 second, please. Wait. Okay. I think you should be able to see it now.
Yes, perfect. Amancaes is a project located in the district of Rimac in Lima, Peru. It defines resilience as the self-management capacity of a determined community to modify and improve its urban context, taking into account an approach towards landscape and key social, ecological, and risk issues. Through a methodology that combines communication strategies, physical interventions, and collective empowerment, Amancaes has positively affected the neighborhood of Flor de Amancaes and its relationship both with its public space and with its fragile coastal hills ecological system. Claudia, Amico, and Javiera Infante, the project founders who are with us here today, started Amancaes in 2018 as professors at the Maestría de Arquitectura y Procesos Proyectuales from the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú. Claudia Amico draws on her vision as an architect and urbanist, and Javiera Infante employs her training as a landscape architect. Today, Claudia and Javiera will give us insights into the history and key phases of the project, and present Amancaes' next steps to enhance the resilience of the community. Also joining us today are Juana Cama, Aide Cerrón, Cecilia Cerrón, and Trinidad Lopez, who is actually in the Lomas right now, leading members of the PAFLA Association and local advocates of Amancaes. Marlene Sanchez, who is a community member and local advocate of Amancaes, and Zulema de la Cruz, who is a local advocate of the project. They have been working alongside Claudia and Javiera throughout the whole process. So without further ado, please welcome Javiera and Claudia.
Thank you, Lulu, for your introduction. We're very happy to be here and share some of the processes we've been developing in Flor de Amancaes. Well, as you said, we are Claudia and Javiera. Well, we're kind of the visible face for you of Amancaes, but the reality is that we're just a little part of a big group of powerful, amazing people, led by Aide, Juana, Trinidad, Cecilia, Marlene, Meche, Reina, Zulema, and other women, all together for a better and resilient neighborhood. Before we start, we want to show you this video. It's just for you to understand where we are located, the problems we're committed to solve, and some of the processes we have been building over time. We're sorry that isn't translated, but we're sure most of you understand Spanish. So, Clau, can you please put the video?
Of course. Just a question. If I share my video, is the sound automatically gonna be heard, or should I do something on the Zoom?
I think it would automatically be heard.
Okay.
And I think the interpreters can help us translate it to English. So if you want to listen it to English, you can just click there for the duration of the video.
Cool.
Okay.
Just a second.
Let me just try and share it from the YouTube, because it doesn't seem to be working from here. Sorry, just a second.
Claudia, we have
Well,
we can share it if you want.
yeah, while we wait, I can tell you that, well, this video, it's just for you to understand or to give you a glimpse of what the Lomas, this fog oasis ecosystem, looks like, what the landscape looks like, and present this ecosystem as well as the neighborhood and its complexities. The local members of the project talk about their needs and desires for the future, the stages of the project, what we think about the project in the future, etc.
Okay, I'm gonna try and, can you hear now?
No, I think we're not hearing.
Okay. Maybe Lulu, if you could share it, because then maybe the sound, for some reason, the sound is not coming through.
For the sound, if when you go to share, you check,
Okay.
there's a button that says like to share sound as
Share
well.
sound, that's the one I was looking for. Thank you.
A ver la flor de Amancaes en un berebere criollo va a lo largo del camino con jipija, papañuelo y poncho blanco de lino mientras corre la mañana su recuerdo juguete.
Porque salir a la calle, ver tierra, no era tan agradable para nosotros. No hay parques, no tenemos jardines. Pero yo no salía para nada.
No salía para nada.
No se puede.
A las dos mejillas y cuatro cascos cantando van camino de Amancaes. Qué hermoso que es mi chalán, elegante y garboso, sujeta la fina.
Los niños están dispuestos a apoyarnos porque han visto el cambio en este espacio, tanto en la parte de arriba, en el parque infantil, la escalera a las lomas. Hemos visto la posibilidad de recuperar estos espacios para el bien de la población, ¿no? Porque se imaginan todo el montón de basura que hemos retirado de Parque Amancaes, porque realmente ahora la gente
respeta, ¿no? ¿Y usted se sienta por acá?
Sí, yo me siento.
Está muy bien.
En mi barquito me siento.
Se lleva su banquita y se sienta a disfrutar la vista.
Muy lindo y sería un sueño hecho realidad si este parque, si el nuevo parque que está en proyecto sea verdad, ¿no?
En un lugar limpio, sin basura, sin mal olor, que es lo que siempre hemos querido.
Durezas del berebere que hay en su tierra de origen.
Well,
Hola, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a
watching this
Pequeñas
video.
Citas de Miércoles, el espacio electoral de la Encerrona, y a partir de hoy...
Yeah. Thanks for watching this video. Well, this story, more than a compilation of management strategies and the application of a few methodologies involving different actors and volunteers in a common purpose, is also a story of resilience. Above all, it is an invitation to other neighborhoods, people, public workers, professionals, and project managers to learn from this experience, to think that these processes are possible to reach, especially in those places where the city needs to reconcile its coexistence with the landscape. So next. This project or process started in a workshop we did, I mean, Claudia and I, with Sebastián Bustamante in 2018. We were professors there with Claudia, so that's why we made this workshop together. Sebastián brought the methodology of Rehabitar la Montaña that he and his group of Urban EAFIT, a university in Medellin, used in the hills of this city in Medellin, a place that has a lot in common with Flor de Amancaes, the neighborhood where we are working in this project. So the purpose of this workshop was to create a vision for this territory, something that could be powerful, easy to build, economic and respectful with the environment and the people that were living there. The result was thrilling. We had 5 amazing projects that could be built immediately after finishing the workshop, and they're triggering some beautiful research themes that we wanted to keep investigating, such as public space recovery, urban agriculture, rainwater collection, slope stabilization, and circular economy. So next, we decided that the result of the workshop was too good to just leave in presentations. So we needed to make it real. And we continued working with the neighborhood, Clau and I, with different NGOs and others. And after some years of effort and even pandemics, here we are. Next. These are just a few of a big number of collaborators this project has had. We should name people that help us in an uncountable variety of things, such as logo design, the promotion of the activities we were constantly organizing in the neighborhood, the students of the master program the Universidad Católica, the participants of the workshop we mentioned a couple of slides before, the Red Andes Pacifico, NGOs, journalists, publishers, and editors. Well, it has been a long process, but we think we can summarize it in a powerful collaboration, which is why, despite all difficulties, I mean this big group of people, have been transforming Flor de Amancaes for good. In fact, none of these would have been possible without Juana Cama. She's the one pointing at a bird that was flying over us that day. In 2017, Juana, one of PAFLA's leader, which is a group in the group in the photo that you're watching right now, heard that a group of the Universidad Católica was visiting the neighborhood because we had an urban derive in this master program. We were professors with Clau, with the Italian architect Francesco Careri, which was like, it has nothing in common with Flor de Amancaes. We were doing something different. But when she heard this, she immediately decided to wait for us in the only bus stop the neighborhood has, because she felt it was important to tell us what was happening in the neighborhood in her own way. she felt that a university was a kind of a neutral institution. So it was a kind of hope for them. Well, this with Clau, this never ceases to surprise us. We always wonder, like, it is really a coincidence that she intervened in our activity? We don't think so, but it was the cornerstone of this process, so it's important to mention. After we started with Clau next to organize the process and the project after the workshop, we started to organize some community meetings just to know what the people from the neighborhood were mostly concerned with and how they felt about the projects we were proposing after the workshop. And ultimately, we wanted to create a bond, which is very important, with the neighborhood and start working together as a team. So next. We didn't want just to be in charge of the design of the project, which is what actually architects do most of the time, but to lead the whole thing, the design, the process, and management. We truly believed, and we still do, by the way, that this is the key of a consistent and coherent method towards resilience. Next, we finally recognized 3 essential axes in this method, which help us to structure the whole process: communication, empowerment, and physical interventions. And we believe this structuring, and sorry for the words, we're so architects, is the key for the project to succeed. Clau.
Thank you, Javiera. And now we just want to explain a little bit more about this methodology. Communication is one of the pillars of the process, both internally with the neighbors to get to know and see what everyone is doing, because this is important, but also externally, where there's a strategy to present the achievements to other communities, to other people who might be interested in visiting this ecological site, and how, especially how the local community is taking action in its preservation and in the recovery of public spaces. This network, which we created with the project, which includes also members of the local government, where we mostly use WhatsApp, as simple as that, but also sometimes Facebook, has been essential in the management of the interventions, and also for the neighbors to get to know each other. And also this network helps the community against informal land invasions, which happen very often, or threatening events such as fires, and it brings together the necessary information for students to work on site. This is whilst we developed the next course of the university during the pandemic. No, the students couldn't go on site, so they could actually use these networks to organize the information, to obtain information. And also it's a network which is necessary for the community to organize events and to spread the word about other initiatives that are happening in similar neighborhoods or in their own neighborhoods, such as reforestation campaigns, which some PAFLA, the institution that Juana, Trinidad, Cecilia, and Aide represent, organize, or food donations throughout the pandemic and other activities. But throughout the pandemic, it has been a key tool for this process, but also for the resilience of the neighbors. Empowerment is important because neighbors have to become the main agents for change, but because they have always been the agents of change in these neighborhoods. They have always been in charge, building their houses, fighting for water, access, or for building pavements, stairs. But this time they are proposing solutions with the collaboration of architects, forestal engineers, urban planners, and students. This is what Amancaes brings. And they start to recognize the importance of their knowledge and they have better confidence in the skills and capacity for solving problems, but also for being creative. Here we just want to show you how many people have participated in the project. Those green dots that you can see, it's not a very good image, I'm very sorry, but they represent the different people that have taken part in Amancaes. And as you can see, some of the people are living in the higher parts of the neighborhood and some in the lower parts, which are more consolidated. And this is important because the process has achieved a real challenge for these kind of neighborhoods, which are on the land slopes, no? Because people from higher, less consolidated areas are working collaboratively with those who live in flatter, more consolidated zones. And these are opposite groups that normally confront each other. They form little sectors and they battle each other for rights, for donations, or for projects even. There's always conflict, but now they are resolving together and they become a team and work together against greater problems. The physical interventions that we've carried out are simple but flexible designs, which are constructed collaboratively. They evolve when the contingencies arise, and this is where the creativity of local neighbors comes in. And in the process, but most importantly, they demonstrate how to make an idea into something concrete and real, helping neighbors believe that change and improvement is possible by making this change visible. People now have a different attitude. After all the work that we've done, there's a different attitude towards public space. In a neighborhood with severe waste disposal problems, what used to be dumps, where people threw their rubbish or the aggregate from construction works, has now become a recovered space, which is well looked after. The local fog oasis, the Lomas ecosystem of the coastal hills, has regenerated within the urban spaces as part of a risk management strategy for slope contention with native plants, which helps create concern, but also acknowledges the ecological system that this neighborhood is part of. There is now a public space where people can sit, where children can play, which the neighbors can simply enjoy. And it's as simple as that, something so basic that this neighborhood lacks very critically, no? And the future, this is just to show you the future plans for the implementation of new public spaces and for the design of better watering techniques, which is a critical issue in the neighborhood right now. This all depends on the availability of funds and collaborations, where Amancaes has left a roadmap of possible next phases for the community and for the members of the project, possible next interventions, which basically depend on this neighborhood management and also greater projects to happen, which depend, of course, on political commitment. Resilience for Amancaes has meant being able to adapt and being able to offer alternatives to the different kinds of crises that the neighborhoods have endured. It has meant that despite other desperate needs and problems that this neighborhood has, the neighbors have managed to envisage a long-term benefit, which has granted them with a much needed public space to find peace and vegetation outside of their household problems. Resilience also means the potential for these processes to be adapted and implemented in other neighborhoods with similar problems, if there is a will, of course, for change and self-management within the neighbors. Last December, we launched this digital publication of the process. It's in Spanish only, but it's an open downloadable resource which we'd like to share with you, and we invite you to read. I'm hoping that the organizers can share the link where you can download it. And well, thank you very much for listening. Oops, sorry. And thank you. We just wanted to leave you before we finish our presentation with this thought, which could trigger or start a discussion. What are the lessons taught by this process, the process of Amancaes, in our way of seeing, living, and imagining resilience? Thank you very much. And we have our panel here, our members of Amancaes, which Lulu presented, and we hope that we can try and translate if there are any questions that they can also answer. No? So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing the link.
Thank you, Claudia and Javiera. Now we will move on to the presentation from Fundación Espacio, and after the presentation we will have a space for Q&A, so please feel free to post them on the Q&A chat. Fundación Espacio is a Caracas-based non-profit organization founded in 2007. It promotes the dissemination and exchange of knowledge in regards to design works in Venezuela, embracing various disciplines that range from urban planning and design to architecture and interior, industrial, and graphic design. Since its start, professionals from diverse fields and interests have researched and implemented projects on urban issues, coordinated by the architects and professors Aliz, Mena, Franco, Micucci, and Isabel Peña, who are here with us today. Aliz, Franco, and Isabel, please take it away.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Maria Lucia, for your kind presentation, and to the Latin American organizations from UPenn Weizmann School, MIT, DUSP, GSAP Columbia, and GSD Harvard for having us today to discuss this broad subject, yet sensitive and relevant in such an stimulating event. We're going to introduce ourselves, who we are and what we do, and then we'll give you a little tour through one of our most recent projects in communities at Fundación Espacio. We are a Caracas-based organization formed by a diverse group of professionals and professors from Universidad Simón Bolívar and Universidad Central de Venezuela, interested mainly in urban issues from different approaches: academic, technical, educational, and mainly civilian. So this is our scenario and framework. Caracas, living together in times of segregation, exclusion, distress, economic crisis, and social discontent. And if this is not enough, a global pandemic. All of this take place in a very complex, stratified context charged, however, of opportunities, beauty, and hope. As many of you may know, we are the consequence of an oil boom that transformed completely our country from an agriculture based into the rush of modernity, shaping our city into a prominent capital, leading in art, architecture, landscape, and urbanism, but leaving significant gaps in terms of how to manage the progressive growth, vulnerable sites, basic services, new spatial needs, infrastructure improvements, and so on. In the present, we value this heritage, but we recognize that the need to move on towards an upgraded and resilient city. How we understand the urban settlements in the basis of our urban environments with the rise of a new role of the citizens, embodying their differences, the contrast and complexity, even the current barriers, either physical, social, naturals, and cultural. We have worked in disintegrated context, packed of inequality conditions, needs, and most important, the denial of the other. So small and strategic interventions come up to make possible the coincidence of different voices that needed to be here and visualized favorable circumstances to catalyze long-term changes. Building an array of tools and initiatives looking for link together institutions, neighbors, and citizens in spaces of tolerance and equality, attending different audiences and associating key aspects to look, to recognize, to participate, to be part of the process. We focused in the subjects of the public realm, following a philosophy of working cooperation and alliance with institutions, organizations, and other actors, promoting quality projects relevant to the expectations of the community with a citizen-led approach like tactical urbanism, ephemeral interventions, among others. Combining art, happenings, lightning, and activation events with devices to look the city from another on different perspectives, we take advantage of different possibilities to build awareness of the threat and to claim for better and even more welcoming spaces. Understand that segregation of uses need to be addressed in terms of a more coherent and bearable existence, recognizing the authenticity and genuineness of various audiences and bringing the opportunity for inclusion, cultural appropriation, and recreation. For instance, industrial areas or non-occupied streets. Paying attention to places where strong political protests dominate the urban scenario through different low-cost and temporary interventions intended to reuse these symbolic places and reestablishing the civility and the claim of new look to local communities, common places, and developing a cultural agenda that comprise participation, versatility, resignifying, and diversity. And also giving the opportunity to know and visit different sites of the city through city tours and pedestrian routes, to recognize and inhabit transformed spaces, or simply be aware of the communities, plazas, public spaces, and the cityscape and the building environment that are close by, but often unseen. To the question about how we define resiliency, we do so by embracing the complexity, understanding the reality, learning for the underestimate, and moving forward to look for the future, the next challenge, and the opportunities to improve our surroundings and building together more livable cities.
Isabel, I think you're muted.
Okay, what about now? Are you listening?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, so we started the second phase of Caracas City 450 with communities. And in this case, we were locating 10 communities in the whole Caracas, very close to the phase one. Let's say that in phase one, we had 12 places, 12 sites, different ones. Now in the second phase, we had 10 other places. So this time we had these 10 communities of informal settlements, and we made 2 open calls. And then we have teams participants, and they had to get to us through visits, through having some seminars and conferences, and also to interact with each community in order to get to them and to have some principles. These principles to get to transform the urban space had to go for fundamental themes, such as ecological management and environmental impact, for getting forms of productivity and economic growth, also social development and quality of life, and finally, institutional links and community organizations. This image is very important for us because it says that barrio is a one whole thing with the city. Even when there is a mixture of textures in terms of urban grid and grain, urban settlements are part of our city, and we have the conception as a whole thing, just as one city. So we had to get not just to the people, but to the leaders. We thought it was a strategy, not just to get to the place. This is a place that we're going to be showing as a sample, and it's called Catuche, and it's an enclave at the west north of the city. It's a very nice and beautiful colonial place, which has a lot of stories and history. And then we get to the people for about 8 months of knowing each other, of having a bond, of having a confidence, so we can exchange the needs and the perceptions that they have of their place. It's important to know about the history of Catuche. Catuche was the first one, very close, located to the first creek that was the water fountain of the settlement, the formal settlement of Caracas. So it has a history also because it was the connection through the colonial ways. The Spaniards have this connection through the mountain, the big mountain of the city, the Avila, towards the Caribbean. Also, it was the place to have the first bridge on top of this creek called Catuche. And we can see how dense and how hectic it was for one time. And obviously, it was a disaster in 1999 when there was a natural event. So these people had some traces from the places they came from, the fields. They came to know how to do what they call conucos, which is to plant any place that they can have something to eat. They will go and do some planting. But also they would go into economic initiative like this, like doing homemade ice creams, or to have cyber cafes close by. And this fact that we came with all these teams, with people, made them start talking and start mapping what were all those needs that they have in their spaces. So they took us in tours and they explained us how was the place, how they liked it, and what were they missing. But most of all, we started understanding one thing that was very, very important for us, and it was to understand the strengths of the structures that were underneath. Here you can see on the one hand, the head of Fe y Alegría, which is an organization that is religious and also educational. And then the head of the other association, it's a community association, a civil one. And those two were exactly the two arms that we needed to have success in this performance. So this is one of our pictures of the people that went there and the relationship that we started having with this community of Catuche. We have to remember that we did this 10 times in 10 different sites. So people had to explain and propose different proposals from different points of view. In this case, the winners were a group of landscapers that took in care all the topic of the creek and also the topic of the geography, but the fact that it could be a potential to develop along the creek an urban system of local and urban open spaces qualified by them. And when I say qualified by them, was that we gave them tools, let's say knowledge, in order to do some stones in order to have a pavement to get to their houses, with the little rocks that they could find in the creek. So they started understanding that this was also a way not just to change the atmosphere of the place, but to have a product produced by themselves. So you can see that there's a change in the perspective of the landscape, the urban landscape, that started being much more organized, with little places with green, also little places to get together and to get to the bridges that they were there. But it was not just a matter of taking care of the environment. It was a topic of integrating. You can see the rocks that were part of the tragedy in 1999, but now they were completely integrated with this pavement that they did with their own hands. So here you can see that also the beauty was something that was integrated as part of the efforts that they really care. And finally, the day that they were, having an opening, and all ages were integrated to be with this opening, that was a happy moment, and not just for the having a new system of open spaces, but also empower them, having some products that they could do with their hands, and some that they could cultivate and do some marmalades and jams and things like that. So this is one of a lot of examples.
So thank you, Isabel. And in order to round up our presentation, since we're running late, we actually tested this methodology on 9 other sites, basically understanding the local conditions of each one of them in terms of the geography, the history of the place, but also the struggle of some of these places in relationship to some social housing complexes next to them, or the university complex or the botanical garden. Please, Isabel, move on quickly. So we basically took over a strategy to somehow occupy spaces that were institutionally abandoned by the state or by the government. In some other cases, we work in communities in order to prove the potential of some of the open spaces, in order to recover places for gathering, for civic organization, and the recognitions of institutions that were present on the site, working also with children, incorporating elements of natural components in order to improve the quality of environment on the place, but also to reinforce the presence of these institutions. In some cases, these communities are actually behind walls, so you actually don't see them. So we actually work on giving a voice, working as a community, almost as a social media strategy, working with journalists and communicators in order to give a voice to the community, but also to spread the news about the local needs, but also the importance of the construction of a portrait of the community by including the pictures of the community on the walls of the surrounding neighborhood as a way of integrating the informal community with the surrounding context. In some other cases, close to the golf courses, these small communities, we found an opportunity to improve the conditions of cultural institutions within the community in order to improve the situation of the public space, incorporating art and activities in order to create a scenario for cultural events of this community, but also as an opportunity to reinvent solutions about recycling and the reuse of materials that could be an opportunity for an economic initiative. In some other cases, we actually work with a group of movie makers in order to teach children and kids of a community that is surrounded or very close to a historic center, how to use a camera, how to somehow register the conditions of the community in order to create a documentary production that was actually presented on the site and the surrounding areas in order to understand the potential of cinema as a way to improve the conditions of the community. Basically, to end up, we also work in other places of the city, basically by understanding the importance of educational institutions and the importance of these institutions and their communities in difficult times, incorporate art in order to give meaning to the open spaces of these schools in order to somehow deal with the issue of the pandemic as well. Basically, all these integration of art, landscape, architecture, and infrastructural solutions actually came up in some other cases in order to get rid of the car as an element that invades the few spaces that these communities may have in order to incorporate very small elements of architectural solutions to create covered places, places of gathering in order to recognize the existence of a school or also a traditional place of religious events in the community, but also as an infrastructure in order to create gatherings or also presence of permanence. So in order to end up, we're going to look at Los Erazos, where we actually work with a group of professors that actually train kids in order to do a digital fabrication workshop in order to produce domestic objects by recycling some of the garbage or the plastic materials in order to recycle the material, in order to produce 3D printing lamps for the community in order to improve the conditions of lighting in these very dangerous places of the city of Caracas. And to end up, Las Mayas, La Vega, which is a place very dense, but we also work by taking over some of the abandoned spaces that could actually be reprogrammed with as a playground for children, given the fact that you have a lot of educational institutions around it. So working as a team as well with our incredible group of professionals that actually have shared the work with us, and some of of them are actually part of the team that is organizing the event. Just to end up, a small video of a minute about the community and the voice of the most important actor of the program. I don't know if you can actually play it.
Shall I play it?
Yes,
okay.
Please go.
Hold on. Just a minute.
You have to share screen once you have it.
Sure. Hold on. Hold on. Share screen. Okay.
Mi Vega, quiero que vuelva a ser esa Vega de antes, unida.
Hold on.
Unida.
Hold on. Just a minute. 1 second. 1 second.
You can share the video if you want, Marisabel. We have it ready to share. So go ahead, Paula, please, if you can share it.
I think I got it. You got it?
No, okay.
No? Okay.
Yo particularmente...
Help.
Yo diría que esto es una familia grande, una gran familia. Aquel que no se conoce porque está llegando hoy, porque realmente nos conocemos todos, todos somos como una gran familia. ¿No?
Yo particularmente reivindico la palabra barrio, me es muy cómoda, me es muy agradable, creo que en el barrio estoy orgulloso de ser del barrio San Agustín, soy orgulloso de ser de un barrio y me reconozco en este barrio y en los barrios del mundo.
Yo diría que esto es como una familia grande, una gran familia. Aquel que no se conoce porque está llegando hoy, porque realmente nos conocemos todos, todos somos como una gran familia, nos contamos los problemas, compartimos todo, absolutamente todo. Y bueno, es algo que no se ha perdido, esa característica de pueblo y que lo vamos a mantener por muchos años.
¿Recuerdas aquella noche cuando por mortificarnos nos lanzamos mil reproches?
Tú te acercas un día viernes después de las 4 de la tarde y esto es una fiesta, o sea, se aboca. Lo que es la calle principal forma parte de lo que pudiese ser el escenario de la sala de una casa.
Aquí no hay egoísmo, no hay nada, aquí todo es una comunidad muy buena esta comunidad. Es difícil conseguir por aquí, cerca de Caracas, una comunidad como el Guire.
Nos lanzamos mil reproches y no supimos callarnos.
Mira, para mí La Vega representa mis sueños, mis cambios, el conocer infinidades de cosas. Yo, para mi Vega, quiero que vuelva a ser esa Vega de antes, unida.
Thank you for the help.
Thank you, Fundación Espacio and Amancaes, for your presentations. It has been so interesting to see the work you're doing at a local scale in comparison to the more theoretical conversations we were having on how to approach and understand resilience, and the work you are doing right now. So we don't have any questions from the audience. So I was wondering if you had any final remarks on each other's work, or Javiera, I know that wants to ask some people from the community to share their comments or opinions on their project. So if you want to go ahead and do that, we can have our interpreters translate that into English. So any of you who want to listen to that in English can switch there in the little globe at the bottom.
Yes, we want Aide to speak a little bit. Aide, can you please? Aide, ¿puedes por favor prender tu micrófono?
Buenas tardes con todos.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, Javiera, Claudia y toda la audiencia que está conectado con nosotros. Quiero hacer un comentario después del gran trabajo que se hizo en la recuperación del espacio público, que prácticamente Flor de Amancaes, como no tiene parques, no tiene jardines, y realmente a nosotros nos tiene pues muy relegados, porque la autoridad se olvidó muchos años de nosotros. Hay pocas obras que se hacen en este sector, y es por eso que PAFLA, la Asociación Protectores Ambientales de la Flor y Lomas de Amancaes, es una asociación sin fines de lucro. Ya la Loma de Amancaes tiene un rango de área de conservación regional, y como esto ya tiene, como dice, sus propios candados, sus protocolos, y nosotros muy respetuosos de esto, siempre tenemos ahora que pedir permiso, autorización para incluso ingresar a la loma. Entonces, para nosotros no quedarnos de brazos cruzados y viendo, ¿no?, la contaminación que había en el sector del sector de entre Horacio Ceballos y la F1, F2, que es en el RIMAC, bueno, pues empezamos a trabajar con los profesores de la Católica, ¿no?, con los alumnos, a diseñar, a hacer esto, de recuperar este espacio. Gracias también a la misma comunidad que se compró el pleito, porque después de haber retirado más o menos 30 toneladas de basura, ¿no? Y esto realmente ha sido pues como un plan piloto, porque la población está muy contenta con este trabajo, porque esto se retiró la basura antes de la pandemia, antes de confinarnos en el mes de marzo. Entonces, y después se vino la pandemia y realmente, si no hubiéramos retirado esas 30 toneladas de basura, ¿no?, prácticamente Flor de Amancaes hubiese perecido con esta pandemia, porque era un foco infeccioso, porque toda la población bajaba y dejaba la basura ahí, ¿no? Entonces, eso se recuperó hoy en día, gracias al esfuerzo de muchos de la comunidad, se pudo recuperar ese espacio y hoy florece, ¿no? Los árboles están hermosos. Está hermoso y bueno, están floreando, ¿no? Hay muchas flores, el camino limpio, la gente está empezando a respetar el espacio y bueno, estamos tratando nosotros, ¿no?, de que todo cambie. Esperemos que al final de todo esta pandemia termine, ¿no? Termine pronto, porque es muy, muy doloroso perder vecinos, amigos, compañeros que nos ayudaron a recuperar estos espacios. Se va. Entonces es muy doloroso.
Gracias, Aide. Es muy duro. Gracias por tu testimonio. It's a very hard testimony, but it's the reality of the neighborhood. And we just wanted to close there with this voice of hope, which Aide, I think, is transmitting to us. and how important it is to have quality public spaces and vegetation, because it is in these neighborhoods, it really is the sign of hope. I just want to say, because I know there's no time, but Trinidad Perez is right now connected from the actual Lomas, and Trinidad, no sé si puedes prender tu cámara para que vean las Lomas, just to have an image of the Lomas. Marlene Sánchez, también vecina que ha sido líder de todo el grupo de la base de abajo.
Sí, estoy presente, señorita, muchas gracias.
Gracias, Marlene. Lamentablemente no hay tiempo para seguir hablando. Con unas palabras de cierre, Marlene.
¿Me escucha?
Porque ya no hay tiempo.
¿Me escuchan, señorita?
Sí, te escuchamos.
Buenas tardes.
Marlene, lamentablemente no,
¿Me
nos
escucha?
dice que ya no hay tiempo para seguir con las intervenciones, pero yo solo quería presentarte a ti, a Zulema, que ha sido como un apoyo importante en todo el proceso. También bueno, Aide, que acaba de hablar, a Cecilia, a Juana Cama, que es la que empezó todo, a Trinidad, y bueno, es importante escuchar las voces, ¿no? It's very important to hear the voices from the people who are experiencing the daily challenges of living in these neighborhoods. Thank you all for being here and for listening.
Thank you so much, Javiera, Isabel, Franco, Aliz. Now we're going to have to move on, sadly, to the next panel that will start at 3:20 sharp Easter time. So please join us for that. Thank you so much for your presentations. And we'll be sharing information on both organizations' social media and the chat. Thank you.